of all, uh, if you would, please subscribe to the show. We're on all the major platforms around the world. And if you would just hit subscribe, it makes it easy. Kind of cookies at eye level when the new podcasts, new conversations, new episodes come in, they just sort of hit your box automatically, and it helps to keep the show at top of mind. Number two, if you would share, there is something about today's episode that you really need to hear, that we need to hear as an audience, because I believe that iron sharpens iron. And when we have a real raw conversation, it just makes us all better. And if you would, let me know how you're getting the show, how you're receiving the messages. You can give me a really candid feedback email. Chuck at bullstreetmergers.com is my email address. Shoot me an email and say, this is what I liked about the show, or Chuck, this is what you can do better. I do this show as a give back. I've been so incredibly blessed in my life and fortunate. The Chuck Crumpton Show is a way to give back and try to make a difference in the lives of others. I don't monetize the show. I don't charge people to listen or people to come on as guests. Again, this is out of my heart and out of my head just to give back, and where the messages are real and raw, because I do want to make a difference for folks in their life and in their business. So if you would just subscribe, share, leave me a review, hopefully a 5-star review if we're doing well. If you can't leave a 5-star review, I would encourage you to go check out another podcast. There are probably millions of podcasts out there now. And if the Chuck Crumpton Show is not meeting your needs, please go find something that you can really value your time, because your time is important. But anyway, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back right after this.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of The Chuck Crumpton Show, a non-for-profit podcast making a difference, where conversations are real and raw. We are grateful for your support as we build one of the fastest growing podcasts in the U.S. Please subscribe. More information can be found at thechuckcrumptonshow.com. Thank you for listening. Here's Chuck.
Thank you, Julie. And again, welcome to another episode of The Chuck Crumpton Show. I have to tell you, I love business. It's where I spend my life every day, Monday through Friday, and some Saturdays and Sundays. And I believe that small businesses in America with 2 to 200 employees or so is the engine that drives our world economy. The messages you will hear on the Chuck Crumpton Show are real world business perspectives. I've been incredibly blessed and fortunate to have built 2 of my own companies and sold them. Both had started in the tool shed of my garage. As a matter of fact, this podcast 4 years ago now started in my tool shed. And I embrace conversations that are real and raw. I am a practitioner of business. This conversation today is about life and business. It is not about business theory. The conversations are real and raw. At Bull Street Mergers, we help business owners build and sell remarkable companies. If we can help you, please reach out to us at bullstreetmergers.com. Okay, enough of that. Let's get after this. I am really, really happy today to introduce our guest, Campbell Wiltshire. Campbell and I have gotten to know each other a little bit over the last couple of years. Really interesting story. And we have, as you know, in my audience, and now we have thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners literally all over the world. We have a range of guests that are very seasoned business owners and CEOs, a lot of leaders. And then we have a lot of folks that listen that will one day be the leaders of our next generation. So we kind of cover the gamut. And today, I am really happy to have Campbell on board. He has an interesting background with his dad being British. His mom originally is from Memphis, Tennessee. She traveled all over the world speaking to hotel owners on motivational sales and customer service topics. Campbell actually did an internship in New York City at the Juilliard, which is incredibly impressive. He actually is a very impressive young man, and you're gonna see that and sense that and hear that in today's conversation. He actually decided to attend the School of Business at the University of South Carolina instead of pursuing an acting career, but something tells me one day we may see him on Broadway. He is now over the market in Charleston for Now CFO. We'll talk a little bit about his business. And he is the MC. I've seen him live as the MC at 1 Million Cups in Charleston. Finished his BA from the University of South Carolina in 2015. Again, now he is with Now CFO since July of 2021. So, with that as the background, Campbell Wiltshire, welcome to the Chuck Crumpton Show.
Chuck, thank you so much, man. I'm so excited to be here. I love the conversations that you have, keeping it real and raw, and that's always fun in my book.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And you shared something with me that I'm shocked. And I'm shocked because you are such a gifted speaker. I've seen you on your feet in your fast. You're fast and furious on your feet, which is a real gift, by the way. I want to unpack that as we kind of go through our conversation, but I've seen you engage with people. I've seen you put people at all levels in a very comfortable position. You're great in front of folks. You're one of those guys, and I'll stop talking because I want you to stay humble. But you're one of those guys who really has an art to not working the room from a bad standpoint, but just working the room to make people feel engaged and involved. And that's a real gift. And I know part of your 6 years of business experience includes sales, project management, and public relations. And I'm not surprised by that. But what I am surprised by the comment you made as we came on the air, and that is this is your first podcast. That's
It
incredible.
is.
Yeah,
It
man.
is,
Incredible.
man. I'm breaking the ice here, diving in head first into the Chuck Crumpton show. I'm excited to be here. I'll say this. It's not going to be my last, Chuck.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well,
There'll
I'm
be more to
honored.
come.
That's right. I'm honored that this is your first one. And again, with our wide range of listeners and guests, I'm thrilled to see the next generation, and I mean that with all due respect, the next generation of leadership that will take over our companies, run our cities and our states and our government, and just make the next generation big and better, right? That's what I want for my kids. I want that one day for my grandchildren. So I think you represent that new frontier. And I'm honored that this is your first podcast. And you're right, this will lead to many, many, many more. So, with all that as our background and backdrop and foundation, we've heard some of your accolades. Again, I've seen you live and in motion, but let's get to the deep end of the pool and jump right into it. I think that's the best way to learn how to swim. Who is the real Campbell Wiltshire?
Real Campbell Wiltshire is right here in front of you. We're going to have raw conversation on the Chuck Crumpton show. Everything I try and do, Chuck, I try and do as genuine as possible. I learned at a young age, it's a lot easier to be yourself than to try to be somebody you're not.
Yeah.
And I've been manifesting that realness, that rawness, that genuine come to the table as wholeheartedly as you can every single time as possible, because that's what's hopefully going to get you the furthest in the life that you live. And So that's a, you know, deep sage statement of who I am.
Yeah.
I love, business. I love the outdoors. I love music. I love sports. Um, but yeah, I mean that's some of the long-winded abridged version.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. And I can see, and I talk about my son. My son's 29, and I have said this of my son Charles for years and years, since he was probably 5. He thinks ahead of the pack, right? He's 29, he acts 39. He, probably looks younger than 29, but his thought processes and his intellectual capabilities and capacities beyond that of a 29-year-old. I see that with you, uh, that the way you treat people, the way you conduct your life and your business, I see you as beyond your age. And I don't need to know how old you are; it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But my sense, and just knowing a little bit about your background, that came from a point of pain, I believe, in your life. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd call it a point of pain. It's definitely something that's front of mind right now. But my parents are very wise. My dad's 73, my mom's 64, and I'm the only one. And so having parents who were probably one of the more older parents out of the parenting group for kids when I was growing up led me to be maybe a little more old school in some of my thought processes, methodology, but then being very new school in who I am as an individual. And so finding some of that balance as
Yeah.
an individual, being old school taught but new school driven,
Yeah.
wasn't always pain free in the schooling years.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Having, again, we're real and raw here. Having been, I don't know how to say this, the giver of a tough time in my life, right, as a husband and a dad, having gone through a divorce. I know your parents went their separate ways. Um, I can only think the decisions that I made in my prior life with my ex-wife affected my children, right? It had an impact on their life and their businesses and all of that kind of stuff. Do you mind that pivotal point in your life when that event happened? How did it shape your paradigm?
Oh, massively, massively. It put into context the power of relationships in so many different ways.
Hmm.
I was, 12, 13 years old, really starting to understand the relationships, the friends that I was having in my life, and what circles of influence they would be on me as an individual. And then seeing the power of what good relationships and good circles of influence can be as I got more into my middle to later teenage years.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was powerful. I don't think there's ever a good time for parents to separate for a kid who's in the middle of it.
Right.
Um, but not being so young and being able to take life lessons, because in the end, Chuck, it worked out probably for the best. My parents went their separate ways. They're both happily remarried now. So, there's some beauty there. But I, as an individual, learned that their relationship wasn't going to be harmonious. They tried for the benefit of me for as long as they could, but then they went their separate ways. And seeing how they managed that, still being civil, being adult, but understanding the power of relationships at an early age was very critical, I think, out of that.
Yeah. Well, there are, as you know, 1,000 different ways to kind of say the same message. The bumps are what we climb on, right? Uh, I heard it beautifully years ago. The roses grow out of the manure, the best and most beautiful roses grow out of the manure, right?